history, the literal history of Major League Baseball from 1900 onward, nobody before Paul Skenes had gotten 25-plus outs, allowed fewer than 5 hits, walked absolutely nobody, struck out 8 or more, and lost. Good morning to you. Good. Wednesday morning, I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins that I hope you'll also check out. Cardinals 2, Pirates 1. It was as if Skenes was going to be left in the game long enough to take an L. That is not in any way, shape, or form a criticism of Derek Shelton's usage. I loved seeing Skenes take the ball and go back to the mound for the 8th, and then even go back to the mound for the first time in his career for the 9th. He had deserved that. He had maintained exactly that steady pitch count that you might recall my having mentioned on yesterday's show as something to very much expect from him in this start. It had been a real point of emphasis. He did everything he could have done. The Pirates didn't get any hits. Well, actually, they got one of consequence. Yet another big one from Nick Gonzalez, which made it at least a little bit funny that afterward Derek Shelton would say that what the Pirates were lacking in the game was a big hit, when in fact that's all they got. What they needed is what they've needed all along, and that's more hits, more base runners. And I don't know how much more evidence is needed to demonstrate definitively that what the Pirates need in order to achieve that is help from the outside, as in significant help from the outside. No, you're not going to make over this lineup into something that's instantly, I don't know, top 10 or even maybe top 15 in the majors. But as I've been saying all along, when you get this kind of pitching, this extraordinary level of starting pitching, in particular, from Skenes, from Mitch Keller the night before, from Jared Jones when he was healthy, you don't have to have some super fantabulous offense. You just don't. You need to put up 3.5 runs, whatever it is, and at least be competent. That's not the case with the Pirates, even of late when they've been winning. What they'll do is they'll spurt out for some 6, 7, 8 runs, whatever, even more on occasion, but they'll regress to this all too easily. And we put that another way. When they lose, it's almost always because of the bats. They do an awful lot of losing by 2-1, 1-0 counts. And that's not okay because that's solvable. And that's also not okay because it has a legitimate wear effect on those same pitchers. Want to hear something a little bit startling? If you've followed baseball long enough, you'll know that almost any time a pitcher gets asked about offensive run support in the negative sense, that pitcher is going to try to change the subject, or that pitcher is going to say, that doesn't affect us at all. And I know this because I've tried this only about 1 billion times over the course of my own reporting career, but probably at least 500 million times this season. And that was the answer that I got every single time. Doesn't affect us. We're tougher than that. All we can control is our own jobs, our own performances. Well, I've told you guys that Skenes is a straight shooter. This was his response to that question last night at PNC Park.
There's less room for error, for sure. You look at that outing against the Dodgers where they scored 7 in the first 2, I think. It's easier to pitch there, and the goal there is more to give us length because the margin for error is a lot greater. Margin for error isn't quite as big, so just got to execute pitches a little bit finer.
That's some straight shooting. That's him saying, yeah, it's tougher. It's more of a challenge. You have to be perfect. You have to be really, really fine. And that's not what a competitor wants, because what a competitor wants out of this equation is to win the game. Skeens is a competitor in every way, and as such, he might be the most poorly matched elite athlete with a front office executive in professional sports history, because Ben Cherington has shown to be anything but. He sits and waits and watches, and I believe hopes that the 2024 season just kind of fades off so that he can get his real wish and go with what all of his various math tells him is really the season that they should care about, and that's 2025. There's nothing Cherington hates more than going against the numbers, and therefore he doesn't. And his numbers, I'm positive about this, show him that this season's going nowhere, so he'd rather not invest in it. That, my friends, is about as non-competitive, as non-Skeens as it gets. When we come back, J1Q.
This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Bob, who says, DK, is there any indication that the Pirates are attempting to update this lineup via trade? Like, as in now? Yes, Bob, there are indications that the Pirates are in conversation with multiple teams. But being in conversation is very, very different than having a new player to add to your lineup when you need it. In some of the games that I think everyone would agree, even the mathematicians, are the most important and the most pivotal of the summer, such as, facing the Cardinals 3 in a row, when they're sitting right there with you in the wild card standings. Funny how that math never seems to come into play, does it? So sure, Ben Cherington can be on the horn, he can be texting people, he can also admit publicly, as he did last week, that the Major League Baseball draft was going to be a distraction for him and that he didn't think anything would be progressing on that front until it was over, as if he couldn't just hand the draft off to all the people who spend all year long on that process while he would go about addressing this subject. It just drives me nuts. They haven't done it, and that's really the point that I want to make more than any other today. They haven't done it yet, and as such, Cherington is already derelict in his duty. That doesn't go away if he makes a trade right at the deadline. That doesn't go away retroactively. You don't get a second crack at scoring a second run in that game last night. And that game, at least according to my own version of the mathematics, counts just as much as the ones that are going to be played in August and September, if not more, considering it was the Cardinals. So I want this part, just speaking for myself here, on the record and firmly imprinted. There aren't mulligans here. If Cherington were to wave a magic wand and end up with Randy Arozarena by month's end, which, by the way, he won't, neither he nor the Pirates nor Paul Skeens gets a do-over on the game last night or the countless other games this summer that have been decided exactly like that. Exactly. Because this is a case of a GM waiting, and hoping that everything unfolds the way his math tells him that it should. And his math tells him that this team should not be part of the playoffs in 2024. You want to try to change his mind on that? Good luck, because I can promise you not one thing that happened last night at PNC Park is going to contribute to that. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.